Hey folks, so I made something, and in this video I'm going to show you what is it. It's called OneClick Infrastructure. You can access it on oneclickinfra.com, and in this video I'm going to use Linode Managed Kubernetes, and I'm going to show you how you can use OneClick Infrastructure to get common infrastructure elements like logging, metrics and so on your cluster rather easily. And this is rather timely, this video, because yesterday I just saw a tweet from Linode. They are making very good content for their Kubernetes distribution. Basically how you can install, in this instance, how you can install Prometheus to get metrics on your cluster. And it's very well written. It's rather lengthy and rather deep, and that's okay, because Kubernetes, you can build all different kind of things rather easily, and it's very flexible. However, it requires quite a knowledge to use Helm and other tools as well. And then later on, even if you get through this tutorial, you might find another tutorial and then merging the two once you want logging and so on. And basically my promises with OneClick Infrastructure is that all these components are playing well together, they are curated, and the common features that you would want from your cluster is readily available once you use this. So let's dig into this, but first let me start with creating a Linode cluster, because it will take a few minutes to be ready, which is quite normal for Kubernetes to start up. And it's rather cool, if you ask me. You don't have to do anything, just setting a name, picking a version, and the region where you want the cluster to be in. And I'm going to give it just a single node, because it's just a test cluster. I'm going to delete it in like 10 minutes once this video is done. And I'm going to give it 2 CPUs. There will be a few components that need to start up, and the faster it starts up, the better. So clicking the create cluster button, all it takes, and this view will change in a moment. And once the cluster is up, what I'm interested in is to get the kube config. This is the access details and the access keys included in a file. So once this is ready, I'm going to download it, and we can access the cluster. In the meantime, I'm going to show you OneClick Infrastructure and the promise it has. Basically, the promise is that you will get common things like logging, ingress, like a proxy server that gives you possibilities to direct traffic into your cluster, and later on metrics, secrets management, and other things going to arrive in this little service as well. And the promise is that you need to do three things. First is you need to connect your Git provider. Only GitHub is supported right now, in order to store all this configuration in Git. Now, comparing to the tutorial that Linode made, all those commands are great. However, they are just one-off commands, and you have to put them into bash scripts and later on automate them. And basically all this work is made for you, ready-made for you, and it's going to be stored in Git. So any change you make to Git is going to be reflected on your cluster. And in the second step, you have to choose your components. There are only the basic things right now, logging and ingress, and one very cool thing is Cert-Manager to get you free SSL certificates provided by Let's Encrypt right onto your cluster, meaning that every application you have is going to communicate through HTTPS. That's very cool. It's something everybody needs, I suppose, or they better. And then the third is there will be a button here once we set everything up to write the configuration to Git, and there is a one-time setup which we will get here soon. Basically just cloning the repository and doing a kubectl apply. And from here on, all the changes you have to make is inside Git. So you have to interact with files, not with the Kubernetes API anymore, because the automation included in OneClick Infrastructure gives you this convenience. This is also the GitOps approach, and I'm using well-known open source software to achieve that. Cool, so how about looking back at our Linode cluster, and it's ready, or at least the file is ready. So I'm going to download it, and once it's downloaded, I'm just going to move to a very common place. So I'm just moving the kube config into my kube folder. That's where configuration is usually stored for Kubernetes. And I'm doing one more thing, which is I am pointing my kubectl command line interface to this file. So from here on, whenever I type kubectl get nodes, I'm interacting with my Linode cluster. And by now it's ready. If its status says not ready, don't be scared. It's fine. It will come up in about 2 minutes. So just to look around in the cluster, these are the pods or little software that is running on the cluster already. These are just necessary cluster components given to you by Linode. If you are wondering what's K, K is a shorthand for my kubectl. So seems all the pods are running and the node is in a ready state. So we can proceed diving into OneClick infrastructure a bit more. So step 1, logging in with GitHub. OneClick Infra needs a few permissions to do that, and you can read the permissions and analyze them, and I will tell you in this video what they are used for. So first of all, we authorized the OneClick infrastructure to be able to log in to OneClick Infra, and then once that's done, I'm going to install this software on one of my personal my personal Git account. And if you are worried that this software is going to access all your code, you can reduce the this worry by only giving access to certain repositories. So for this very purpose, that OneClick Infra will only need a single Git repository, I am going to create one right now, because I'm also conscious that who access my stuff. So GitOps demo is going to be my repository. It's important that it's going to be private, because some secrets in an encrypted form will be part of this repository eventually. So it's a private repo. It's called GitOps demo, and no need to initialize or anything. So I'm just clicking create repository. And once it's done, I am navigating back to the access granting part, and I'm going to find this GitOps demo. So just to recap, I am only giving access to this single repository, and I install the application, and the first step is ready. Things are green. You might have to pick the repo as well, and once you have connected your GitHub account, OneClick Infra greets you, so you can be sure of that it's successful. And then we can go and select the components. Now, you can interact with the cluster with kubectl, and you can get logs and look at the logs and so on. However, it's a very common thing to have some logging dashboard installed to be able to just look into a single application log, or if you search for the error term or some exception or whatnot you have in your programming language, it's cool to have aggregated logging installed. And for that purpose, OneClick Infra gives you Grafana Loki. And what do you get? How do you get started after deploy? Basically, I just want to enable it right now. And once it's enabled, once this toggle is clicked, down here in the third step, you can see the change set that the Grafana Loki was enabled, and I'm going to write the configuration. And this is the actual step when OneClick Infra interacts with GitHub and writes the configuration. And I can check it out on GitHub. It's a single commit, and basically this is the first commit, so I can just browse what was pushed. There are two folders. Bootstrap is the system components, the automation that OneClick Infra uses. This will guarantee the GitOps behavior, so you will see that in a few minutes. I'm using two open source components, Flux and the Helm operator, to achieve that. And there are the components. The components are the things that you picked on the OneClick Infra UI, and this is the configuration, the actual YAML files that you would write yourself, or you would copy and paste from various tutorials. And here you can see there is a namespace is going to be created called infrastructure. There is also Loki and Grafana, and some Grafana data sources defined. So these are things that you would have to do yourself, more or less. So we have written the configuration into Git. Nothing has changed on the cluster yet. So if you go back to the cluster and getting all the pods, it's all the same pods, just the system stuff. So let's do the one-time setup. Let's clone the repo right here. And now all the contents are on my machine. And I'm going to bootstrap a namespace called Flux. This is where Flux will be installed soon. And I'm going to just apply the bootstrap components. So how about I bootstrap everything? kubectl says that a million thing has been created. There is also the Flux namespace, which I'm going to switch to now. And two things, the Flux and the Helm operator is being created. If you don't have the ns command line tool installed, you can always do get pods and then n for namespace and then Flux. So it says that everything is running, and OneClick Infra gave access to this little Flux component to pull from Git. So by now, the system, the infrastructure components that you have enabled, or we have enabled, are already created on the cluster. So this is sort of the magic factor. You can think of this as the CI server has deployed everything. So here we are. We have the pods. They are running and coming up to be ready. And then we need to sort of validate this installation or figure out how to use it. And this is where OneClick Infra also helps. There is a one-pager for every component, which helps you to verify things. This is what we have done, get pods in the infrastructure namespace. We have seen this one. And then to access the Grafana dashboard, to view the logs, we have to forward some ports. This is similar to SSH tunneling. With the kubectl command line interface, you can forward the port from the cluster, which is internal, to your local host, and then you can check out the service on your local host. So I'm just going to run this one. It's forwarding to my port 888, and if I open this one, I can see Grafana running. So this is running on the Linode cluster, forwarded to my local machine. Now I need a password and username. By default, Grafana creates the password into a Kubernetes secret. So just to show it to you, there is a secret right here. There are multiple ones, but this is the one we are interested in. And this one pager gives you a single line command to get the password. And be careful, there is this extra percentage sign for the new line. Don't copy that one over, but if you go to your Grafana dash and use the username admin, unexpected error. That's, of course, because I stopped my port forward. So port forward starts again, and I'm logging in. I am logged in, great. So I'm not going to go into the depth of Grafana and how you can use it. I'm only going to show you the basic things. I'm going into the Explore view. Data source is low-key. I'm looking at logs, and basically I'm using this app selector, and I can pick system components or low-key itself to look at the logs. And this is what we can look at right now. This is the low-key component and some logs, how it was initializing, how it was creating the tables and so on. That's not too interesting, but once you have your own applications, you can pick your application in this drop-down and create dashboards and even alerts and all sorts of things. But that's for a different video. You can also look at the log volume, like how it was happening over time and so on, and pick some time intervals. Cool, so low-key is running, low-key is installed, it's in the Git repository, great. And we have been doing this port forward thing, which is very good to get started, although a little bit annoying if you have to do that all the time. So we are going to install now an Nginx component. Again, a one-pager, what to do, how it works, what is it. I'm going to enable it, and I'm going to provide a host name. Now, typically this is your company name, company domain name, or a test domain name that you will use to try out OneClick Infra. I'm going to use a subdomain of oneclickinfra.com simply because that's what I have access to. And all applications are going to be placed underneath, so like a wildcard subdomain. So test oneclickinfra.com. Again, I scrolled a bit down to write the configuration to Git. Here is the change set. Nginx was enabled. Host was changed to the said domain. Before writing the config, I am going to enable Cert-Manager as well. And what this will give you is rather cool. It will get you free SSL certificates from Let's Encrypt. No need to buy it from an authority anymore because Let's Encrypt is a foundation to make the internet safe. So they are provisioning, I don't know, like a large percentage of all certificates of the internet. Cool. So what is needed here, I'm going to enable it, and I'm going to provide an email address because Let's Encrypt sometimes message you, or it will message me if I have an expiring certificate or whatnot, or there's a problem with my cert. So I'm just going to provide my email, Laszlo plus demoing at Laszlo.cloud. Yes, that's a valid domain name. Cool. So another change, Cert-Manager was enabled and the email was changed to my email. So let's write this configuration. It's written, and I can look at the commits again. This is the second commit, and again, the YAML files that you would do yourself. For example, this Linode tutorial was helping you how to set up the Cert-Manager, the cluster issuer, and so on, all these YAML pieces, and you have to do it yourself. With OneClick Infra, the promise I give you is that it's always going to be playing nicely together, all the components, and it's going to be tailored for Linode and for other providers as well later on. Cool, so all the YAMLs are here, and because we have automation bootstrapped already, if we look at the pods, you can see that all those things that we have enabled on the UI, like Cert-Manager and Nginx, is actually running already. 37 seconds ago it was deployed, and things are, and actually there is also an ingress created for Grafana. Remember the domain I typed on the UI? Now Grafana is exposed automatically, so you can share it in your team with your boss or whoever. Now, before we proceed, so remember that this Nginx needs to be accessed from the internet on the domain name, so you have to set a DNS entry. And I'm going to set a wildcard DNS entry, so this is only a one-time thing. This is the controller. This is running on an external IP address of this one, and I'm going to set this DNS entry on my DNS provider. I'm going to use the OneClick Infra domain DNS. Alright, so the wildcard test has already been set because of my previous tests, but I need to update the IP address because it's a new cluster, new everything. So again, a wildcard domain entry to star.test and to that IP address, which I am saving now. It needs a few minutes to have it propagated to all the DNS services. You can, if you have, I think it works on Windows as well. I'm not sure about Mac, maybe that's a different command. But if I'm looking up with nslookup, so this is the IP address it resolves to, and actually this is the new one. So it's already been propagated, and I can check Google as well. This is the Google DNS. It's already been propagated, and just to be on the safe side, there are a few free tools which are, you know, always on the dodgy side of the internet. So probably they are placing a bunch of cookies and everything on me right now, but I'm going to test or use it. And as you can see, this DNS change was rather fast. So I think we are set with the DNS setup. And if we go to the Grafana domain, it actually resolves. It gives now an SSL error only because it takes a few minutes the first time it's being provisioned, because there is an ingress, and how the automation is set up, the cluster issuer is not there yet. It will need another 1.5 minutes because it will be set up 5 minutes after the Cert-Manager and Nginx is deployed. So I think I will just fast forward to that point where the cluster issuer is ready, and then we continue with accessing Grafana on a valid certificate. All right, the pods showing that the 5 minutes has passed and the cluster issuer is ready. If I'm looking at the ingresses again and looking at the secrets, there is a TLS secret already provisioned for Grafana, actually 6 seconds ago, so I wasn't too soon, but almost just in time. So we have a TLS secret, meaning if I refresh this page, it's a valid SSL page for our Grafana. And again, logging into Grafana using the same password as before. You should make a note of this password yourself. I'm going to extract it from the cluster once more, and once I did that, I'm able to log in with the admin user, and here we go, I'm in. So I think that was everything I wanted to show. Just a recap, what we did was we created a Linode Kubernetes cluster. It came up in like 2 minutes. That was a rather cool experience. We have logged into OneClick Infrastructure, first authorized with GitHub, created a repo for the configuration. We have chosen the components. To be fair, all the components are required for a modern infrastructure, really. So right now there is not much of a choice to be made. So we enabled low-key ingresses and certificate manager. We have written the config to GitHub, and we bootstrapped the automation. And again, in this repository, this is where everything is versioned. You have a paper trail. Every change you make is going to be reflected here. If you do it on oneclickinfra.com or manually in this repository. So these are the components we installed, and these are the YAMLs that you would have written yourself anyways. And the promise I'm giving to you is that these components are going to play nicely together. For example, once we will have the metrics provider installed, Prometheus, it will be in the same Grafana instance. So no need to wire things together yourself. And there is going to be a bunch of common things coming as well. how you manage secrets and so on. So it's going to be a rather integrated experience if you chose to use OneClick Infra. All right, so that's that. Thanks for watching this video, and I hope you will have great success with this tool.